Episode 27, Lob Actually, originally written December 16, 2018. In 1987, the first full-length G.I. Joe animated movie was released to video. Just like the animated Transformers movie that came out a year earlier, one of the main objectives that this movie had was to introduce new characters based on the toys released that year. Cobra's backstory was also expanded upon with the introduction of Cobra la 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 Secret Empire, and the Joes ranks were bolstered by the addition of some new recruits, collectively known as the Rawhides. The Rawhides consisted of 6 Joes, 5 of whom were part of the 1987 toy line. We got the Green Beret Falcon, Military Police Law and his canine companion Order, Covert Ops Agent Chuckles, the Ninja Jinx, and finally Explosive Ordnance Disposal Specialist Tunnel Rat. The 6th member was a grenadier named Big Lob, who didn't get an action figure and seemed to be created solely for the movie. Big Lob's omission from the toy line was quite puzzling, at least to me, because he was easily one of the more memorable new characters from the movie. Big Lob literally stood taller than most of his fellow Rawhides, especially Tunnel Rat, with whom he was often paired with. He also spoke like a sports commentator, likening battlefield situations to a basketball game, calling out all his moves and referring to himself in the third person. And to complete the whole gimmick, instead of using a grenade launcher, he literally lobbed his grenades towards their intended targets, as if he was shooting basketballs. Considering that his name was probably mentioned the most in the movie, for some reason I couldn't figure out exactly what his codename was. Since I wasn't really into basketball at the time, I didn't really know what a lob was. So I kept thinking his name was Big Lob, which I thought was a rather stupid name. Unfortunately, once the movie was done, Big Lob was pretty much forgotten along with the rest of the Rawhides. The 3rd season of the cartoon series, which the movie was supposed to set up, never happened as the original animation company, Sunbow, lost the Joe license to another studio, Deke. And when Deke's new series premiered, their focus had shifted to the next batch of new Joe toys released. One thing worth mentioning though is that while a Big Lob figure was not part of the 1987 toy lineup, there actually was another sports-based Joe that was. The Joe named Hardball was introduced along with the rest of the Rawhides that year. Instead of basketball though, Hardball's sport was baseball. Now maybe it was just pure coincidence, but the whole sports plus soldier gimmick wasn't the only similarity these two Joes shared. First, they were both African American, and secondly, they shared the same weapon specialty, which was that of a grenadier. The only difference being Hardball actually used a multi-shot grenade launcher. And finally, as if to drive their connection home, according to Joepedia, one of the working names Hasbro had before settling on Hardball was Lobshot. While as far as I know, this was never actually confirmed, given all these similarities between the two Joes, I don't think it would be too much of a stretch to conclude that they were actually meant to be the same character. It's quite possible that the producers of the movie thought that the whole baseball theme might not be as catchy, so they switched it up and came up with Big Lob. Who knows? But one thing is for certain for me, I would have much rather gotten a Big Lob action figure over Hardball back in 1987. For years, Big Lob had been a gaping hole in many fans' collection, especially since we got the rest of the Rawhides in both the vintage and modern toy lines. In order to complete my modern lineup, I resorted to making my own custom Big Lob. Looking back, this was a rather memorable project for me, as it was the first custom I did that involved actual sculpting to give him his unique afro hairstyle. For a first-time sculpt, I think I did a pretty decent job. Unfortunately, the same couldn't be said for the jersey number, which required a rather skilled and steady hand to paint, something I didn't have. Well, I did my best and the end result was in my books good enough. Anyway, to complete the circle, a few months later I would add a custom hardball to my collection as well. This, I think, turned out a little bit better. Anyway, in 2010, a full 13 years after the rest of the team was released, the official G.I. Joe Collectors Club finally produced the first ever Big Lob toy. Unfortunately for me, the figure release was done in the vintage style. Being a modern collector, I really had no need for it. It was nice though to finally see him get an action figure. If anything, at least he finally got an official file card, which gave us a better idea of who he was. To explain his absence in any other G.I. Joe media post-1987, Big Lob is simply listed as a reservist, which allowed him the flexibility to only report for missions needing his specialized skill set. And since the Joes didn't regularly participate in any basketball shootouts with Cobra, he was rarely called into action. I kid. But seriously though, another thing firmly established with his file card was that Big Lob was officially his own Joe. While he may have been created as a way to make Hardball's character a little bit more interesting for the movie, moving forward, they would now be two unique members of the Joe team. Big Lob's civilian name was Bradley J. Sanders, as a nod to his voice actor in the movie, Brad Sanders. Now allow me to tell you more of Big Lob's story, as told in his file card. Big Lob's outstanding physical prowess made him an athletic standout since elementary school. During high school, his strength, conditioning, speed, and all-around toughness helped him excel in 6 different sports. With college scholarships lined up upon graduation, he chose to enlist in the Army Reserves to serve his country but still stay close to his hometown and family. Rumors of his outstanding sports prowess and record of precise distance grenade throwing were quickly recognized by the G.I. Joe team. He joined under their Raw Heights program, which allowed him the flexibility to only report for missions needing his specialized expertise. He is well liked by his teammates except for his annoying habit of talking about himself in the third person and using sports metaphors on every subject. The concept of throwing grenades goes back to the Greek fire used by the Byzantines and early gunpowder bombs devised by the Chinese in the Tang Dynasty. 13 centuries later, more advanced and specialized versions are still an integral part of the modern soldier's ordnance. Big Lob is exceptionally skilled at manually throwing hand grenades at specified targets and using his multi-shot grenade launcher for longer distances. He carries a full arsenal of high explosive, flechette, incendiary, chemical compounds, and even smoke grenades to accomplish any mission objective. It would take another 7 years for me to finally get the Big Lob figure I wanted. Once again, it was the Collectors Club to the rescue with a modern action figure of Big Lob. Interestingly enough, this new version of Big Lob looks significantly ripped compared to his original lanky animation model. That's because the club reused existing parts from a previous figure of Roadblock from the 2013 live-action movie G.I. Joe Retaliation. In the movie, Roadblock was played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, which would explain Big Lob's new bulging physique. Anyway, with my modern version of Big Lob in hand, I finally have a complete official Raw Heights lineup for my shelf. And that would basically cover all I have to say about Big Lob. So, was I the only one out there waiting on bated breath for a Big Lob action figure? Let me know in the comments below. Come on, give me some love. Thanks for watching Stories from the Toy Shelf Redux. If you enjoyed this story, please click on the like button and subscribe to the channel to help me tell more. Until the next one.